Have you ever met someone who checks every box? They're kind, they're consistent, they listen. They make you feel safe, but instead of excitement, you feel indifferent, no butterflies. No wild emotional roller coaster, no heart-pounding anticipation. You tell your friends, they're sweet, but I don't feel the spark. You text back slower, you begin to pull away. And eventually, you let them go, only to find yourself, months later, obsessing over someone who barely texts back, runs hot and cold, or constantly keeps you guessing. Why? Why do we walk away from healthy love and chase the ones who hurt us? The truth is uncomfortable. When chaos is familiar, peace feels boring. But boring isn't bad. Boring can be healing. Boring can be safe. Boring can be love. In today's video, we're going to uncover the raw truth behind this emotional paradox. We'll explore why healthy love feels dull when you're used to dysfunction, how trauma distorts your definition of chemistry, and what you can do to finally recognize and keep the love you actually deserve. This might just change the way you look at relationships forever. Let's start with the science. When you grow up in a chaotic, unpredictable, or emotionally unsafe environment, your nervous system learns to associate instability with love. You're constantly alert, scanning for emotional shifts, preparing for rejection, punishment, or abandonment. This becomes your emotional baseline, so later in life, when you meet someone who's calm, kind, and consistent, your body doesn't know how to react. There are no spikes of cortisol, no adrenaline rush, no fear of abandonment to activate your hyper-awareness. And so you mistake this peace for boredom. You say, there's no spark. But what you're really feeling is a withdrawal from the chaos you've grown used to. It's not love you're rejecting, it's safety that feels unfamiliar. This is called trauma-driven attraction. It's why so many people confuse anxiety with chemistry. When someone makes you feel unsure or off balance, your brain mislabels that anxiety as excitement. It's not that the healthy partner isn't exciting. It's that they don't trigger your trauma. They don't activate your survival brain. And because your subconscious is still healing, you misread their calmness as a lack of passion, when in fact it's emotional maturity. Let's talk about the spark, the one. That intense electric feeling you get when you meet someone who feels different. You lock eyes, your heart races. You feel an instant connection. But here's the hard truth, that spark you crave might not be chemistry at all, it might be your trauma recognizing something familiar. You're not necessarily connecting to them, you're reconnecting to your past, to the emotional unavailability you experienced, to the inconsistency you knew growing up, to the validation you were never given but still chase. It's not magic, it's muscle memory. Here's an uncomfortable example. If you had a parent who only showed affection when you earned it, you might be drawn to partners who make you work for love when someone offers love freely. It doesn't feel earned, so it doesn't feel real. You don't feel seen, you feel suspicious. We call it chemistry, but often it's your wounds picking your partner. It's your pain choosing someone who will replay your story. Meanwhile, the person who treats you well, they feel flat, predictable, maybe even boring. But that's only because your nervous system hasn't yet learned that love isn't meant to be chased or survived, it's meant to be received. Let's say you grew up in a house where emotions were unpredictable. One day, your parent was smiling and affectionate. The next, they were cold or explosive, so you learned to walk on eggshells. You learned to adapt, to anticipate, to earn love by keeping the peace. Now fast forward. You meet someone who never yells. They don't play games. They don't withdraw or explode. They just show up. You'd think that would be a relief, right? But for many people, it's confusing, it's foreign. You might feel like something's missing. You ask, why don't I feel nervous? Why don't I miss them like I did the others? Why do I feel so neutral? Here's why. You're not used to stability. In toxic relationships, your emotions are constantly on edge: anxiety, hope, dread, passion, all in one chaotic mix. So when that stops, it's like coming off a drug. You confuse the absence of tension with the absence of love. But that's not true. The absence of anxiety is peace. The absence of games is clarity. The absence of fear is emotional safety. And if you give it time, you'll learn that healthy love isn't boring, it's consistent. The human brain has a survival mechanism called familiarity bias. It means we're drawn to what we recognize even if it's harmful. If you were raised around yelling, dismissiveness, or emotional manipulation, that becomes your version of normal. So when you meet someone who mirrors those patterns, your brain lights up and says, this feels like home. Not because it's safe, but because it's familiar. And when you meet someone who's emotionally present and supportive, your brain doesn't recognize them. It doesn't trust them. It says, this feels off. This is too easy. There must be a catch, so you pull away. You convince yourself they're boring, too soft, too nice. But what's really happening is that your brain is trying to protect you from the unknown, even if the unknown is good for you. That's the tragedy of unhealed trauma. It makes you reject what you need and chase what hurts until you learn to rewire your patterns. Until you realize that what feels boring at first might actually be your first taste of peace. The first step in breaking the cycle is recognizing that your attraction isn't always your intuition. Sometimes it's your trauma speaking. You have to ask yourself, why do I feel drawn to people who make me anxious? Why do I lose interest when someone treats me with kindness? What do I define as love, and where did that definition come from? These aren't easy questions, but they're necessary ones. Because healing doesn't just change who you date, it changes what you're attracted to. When you do the inner work, you stop craving chaos. You start craving stability. You begin to feel comfort in being seen rather than chasing validation. You start to value reliability over charm, and slowly, what once felt boring starts to feel safe, and what once felt exciting begins to feel dangerous. That's the shift. It doesn't happen overnight, but it happens when you give yourself permission to stop romanticizing emotional highs and start honoring emotional health. Here's something Hollywood won't tell you. Real love isn't a feeling you fall into, it's a choice you rise into. Yes, emotions matter, but so does character, so does safety. So does how someone shows up for you daily, consistently, honestly. Healthy love often starts quietly. There may not be fireworks. No dramatic fights, no painful longing. Instead, it's calm, it's consistent. It grows over time, and that's why so many people miss it. They're too busy chasing the rush of toxic highs to notice the quiet strength of real connection. But emotional maturity means asking yourself, do I want intensity or intimacy? Do I want unpredictability or peace? Do I want someone who excites my wounds or someone who calms them? Choosing healthy love means stepping away from your comfort zone and into your growth zone. It's a conscious decision to stop confusing love with suffering. And it takes courage. So, what if boring isn't bad? What if boring is someone who texts back, who keeps their word, who listens, who apologizes, who's emotionally available even when it's hard? What if boring is actually peace? You've spent enough years romanticizing pain, enough time confusing chaos with chemistry, enough heartbreak thinking that being unsure meant being in love. Now it's time for something new, not someone who sets your nervous system on fire, but someone who brings it peace, not someone who makes you chase them, but someone who stands still and says, I'm here, I choose you. That may feel boring at first, but over time it will feel like home, and that is healthy love.